皆様こんにちは。甘えびと女子のための可愛げマインド養成スクールキューティースクールの校長をしておりますジョンソンまちえです。今回の動画は2021年に旦那様と配信したライブ配信の翻訳動画22分間になっております。この元動画は YouTube のねアーカイブの方にまだ残っておりまして、今回の動画の概要欄にも貼っております。たくさんの方に見ていただいて本当にありがとうございます。私自身今回改めて4年ぶりにねこの動画を見返して、本当に旦那様がたくさんの男性心理のポイントを話してくれていることに改めて気づきました。今回は大事な旦那様のね話してくれた部分に翻訳をつけておりますので、ゆっくりご覧いただければ嬉しいなと思っております。そして何よりも旦那様が本当にね世の男性の代表として話してくれたんじゃないかなと思うぐらいに男性心理っていうのを分かりやすく説明してくれてますので、その辺も思いながら見ていただければ嬉しいです。少し客観的に男性心理をしている一本になっておりますので、ぜひゆっくりご覧ください。どうぞ。はい、じゃあ早速ですがお呼びしたいと思います。お願いします。どうぞ。
こんにちは。
こんにちは。
ブライスと申します。
ちっちゃくない声。
よろしくお願いしますね。
よろしくお願いしますね。はい、映ってないですよ。もうちょっとこっち。
ちょっと机狭いから。いっそ邪魔な。
いっそ邪魔じゃないでしょ。もうちょっと近づいてもらって。
Okay.
あ、これぐらいでいいですか。時々。はい。お願いします。
Okay.
はい。じゃあね、今日聞きたいことが3つあるって初めに話したと思うんですけど、私は、まちえは、もともとどんな妻でしたか？
どんなんて
What kind of Wi-Fi was before?
Oh,
Before ね。
Are we getting right into it? Like we're going right there?
Okay, whatever you want to talk right now. I will try my best.
Okay, well, this is your show, so
頑張ります。
what do you want to talk about?
That's why I'm asking. What kind of Wi-Fi was, like you said, I was yelling at you at the bank thing, I mean, money thing. You should give me the banknote more.
All right. Well, if you want one word, it would be unstable. So I always say roller coaster wife.
一言で言うと、ローラーコースターみたいな妻だった。ジェットコースターみたいな妻だったそうです。はい。
Yeah. Do you want to explain that?
Sure.
Do you want me to explain it?
Sure. 説明してくれる。どんな妻だったか説明してくれるそうです。
How long before are we talking?
When we get
When we first got married?
Yeah. 11 years ago?
Yeah.
11年前ぐらいの話。
Yeah, it was crazy.
11年前はクレイジーだったそうです。はい、どうぞ。
What else do you want to say? It was difficult because you were very hot and cold. So
ちょっと待って、ゆっくり行こう。私はオンとオフが激しかったよね。暑くて冷たい女だったんだね。暑いし。
And it was very extreme. Well, honestly, I felt like you were angry at me all the time.
ヒステリックやろだから。
I guess, yeah.
いつも旦那さんに怒ってると思ってたそうです。はい。
And it was difficult because like our relationship before that was fine, but we weren't together all the time, right? We had our space. And so we had our space because we weren't like living together. We spent a lot of time together, but there was that breathing room, right? There's that break time, and that's what you needed, and that's what you need, but I didn't know that. So after we got married and we moved in together, it was like, whoa, this is too much for me. Because it was hard. You were upset with everything, like all the time. Anything and everything. Yeah, it was very difficult for me. And I guess at the very beginning, I honestly thought you hated me.
Oh.
So I.
So
one more thing. So I was in tears a lot of days because I was wondering, why did you marry me if you don't like me so much? And I actually said that to you, didn't I? At one point, like, why did I get married with someone that hated me?
Oh.
Yeah.
はい。ごめんなさい。
Yeah, well, that was the first few years.
最初の初めの数年間そんな感じ。
Well, I guess to back up, we kind of joke about it now, but I kind of feel that way. Like we've been married for 11 years, but I say the first 8 years don't count, or is it 9 years? Is it 8 years? It was the time I got back from America. So yeah, we're kind of, I guess, to kind of give a big picture, we look back on that because we want to learn from that, but I don't consider that the start of our marriage.
Oh.
Kind of, in a way. Does that make sense? Because we didn't really have the conversations we needed to have until later on, which I encourage people to have those conversations.
Can I ask you why you say it's... Let's try one more time?
Yeah, I mean, how much do you want to talk about?
How much can you talk about? I don't know. Okay.
I was going to talk about Reno's time.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So, like, the roller coaster was crazy. It was every day. And I said I didn't know why you were with me. And then I was actually trying to figure out how to separate. And then 2011, Christmas.
2011?
Yeah, Reno was born in 2012. Right? Yeah. 2011, Christmas. You told me you were...
Next day.
Christmas was the day after.
Christmas, next day of the Christmas.
Was it? The day after Christmas. Okay.
Boxing Day.
You told me you were pregnant. And that's the first time I decided to stay.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh.
I told you this.
Oh.
And then because I didn't want to be in that relationship with you because everything was so crazy. When you told me you were pregnant, I didn't believe you at first. So I remember I ran up to the drugstore. Do you remember? I left to go get another pregnancy test and everything was closed. And I ended up in like Namba. I was like, because what you told me just hit me like a wall and I didn't know what to do. So I kind of couldn't believe it at first. But then after that, I mean, that changes a lot, right? Having a child. So that was what kept me here at that time in 2012, 2011. So from that point, it kind of changed everything because I wanted to be a good father. And my parents are still together. Like there's a lot of divorce in the United States, and I've seen what it's done to families. Sometimes it's okay, sometimes it's very bad, but I decided I didn't want that to be our family. So I wanted to make it work at that time. I didn't know how, but I wanted to be there because from that point on, or at least in my mind, what was most important shifted to our daughter. And that's kind of what carried me through that part. And I guess also I was secretly hoping that things would change because you would have something else to focus on besides me. Does that make sense? Sorry. I'm being very straightforward. I want to be clear though, I don't feel that, I mean, this is just my opinion, I don't think children are a way to fix a marriage. You shouldn't try to fix a marriage by having
そうね。そうそう。子供を持ったことで夫婦関係が良くなるっていうのはないからねって主人が言ってます。念を押しとくけどねって。
That's not
子供が直すわけじゃないもんね。
That's not what happened. That's just where we ended up. But I just wanted to say, don't do. That's not a good thing to do. But that's what happened. And I was hoping things would get better, but they kind of didn't. Like it was still very difficult for me. And it was a lot of. You tell me. Why were you angry all the time? Like, why were you upset with me all the time? Why did you get? Like, did you just not know why? Well, I know it's tough sometimes. You get frustrated, and I understand
Mm-hmm.
because we have two languages, and I thank you every day for speaking English with me and with our kids. But I know that must be hard for you. I don't know if that was part of it, like just
Maybe.
the different languages, the different cultures, but I don't know how much of a part. That couldn't have been everything, right? So I guess a couple of years after that, I mean, things were up and down. Some days were better than others.
You don't have to talk like long story.
Sorry. You asked me.
No, yeah, I ask you why the last part. Why the last part?
Well, I'm sorry. I feel like people need some context, kind of thing. Like you can't. If I tell you why I decided to stay without telling you everything that happened, it doesn't have as much impact.
Okay.
Right? It's just the end of a story without a beginning. So if people want to understand where you're coming from and where I'm coming from. Well, okay, so we had, we had Ray, because things were good and bad, but we had Ray, and then things were still kind of, they weren't great, and this may be something that a lot of people can relate to, maybe with their own husbands or wives, but there's a lot of days I just didn't want to come home. Because I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know what kind of mood you're going to be in. I didn't, like, working's not easy a lot of times, and you know, especially with my work, being with kids all day, loud kids all day, and then coming home and just wanting, like, your home should be a safe spot, like a relaxing place, like you should have support in your house. But I didn't have that, and I didn't, like, I would take the long way home. I would take local trains instead of express trains. I would figure out reasons to stay out. Like I wasn't with a company where I had to go out with my colleagues and whatever the traditional salaryman culture is. I mean, a lot of times I was with my one or two of my coworkers, but I would just come back. A lot of times I would just come back late enough to where I thought you were asleep or you were just too tired to argue with me. And that probably made things worse, but I didn't know what else to do because either way, it was going to be bad for me. I was just trying to figure out which way was going to be least bad. Does that make sense? So I guess we tried to talk about it, but a lot of times it would just end in a fight. Like I tried to tell you, but I mean, I can't say I'm perfect. I'm not. And, you know, there's a lot of things I could have done better, but it was still a situation where I always felt you were angry at me for everything and nothing all at the same time. It got to a point where my friends didn't even want to come over to our house because they knew you were going to get mad at me and get upset. And you yelled at my friends before.
Did I?
Yes, you made them uncomfortable. Like I didn't want to come home. Nobody wanted to come over. It was a really bad situation. I was so tired of it and frustrated that I just didn't want to try because it was just too much work. It felt like, and that's what relationships are, the work, but they're going to be hard. But ours felt like it was just too hard and it was one-sided. So, I mean, you always hear the saying, like, this is a marriage, but more than that, it's a friendship, right?
結婚生活であり、夫婦生活であり、フレンドシップ、
Marriage is, I feel like marriage is just a title, but friendship is an idea, it's a thing.
You think?
Yeah. And I didn't have a friend, is what happened, basically. So I guess there's a lot of stuff that happened in between, but there was two big things that happened, I guess. I said I was going to leave a couple times, I think. Like I just said, I can't do this anymore. And you would fight with me all the time. But towards the end there, I don't know when you started studying and trying to look into relationship stuff more. I forget when that.
When?
Yeah. When did that happen?
Should I tell you?
Yeah, well, yeah. I didn't notice it until towards the end. Not the end, but
2017, 16.
16. Okay, well, that makes sense because I left in 2018, right? Beginning of the year with the kids.
2018 April.
Yeah. So it's not why I decided to give you a second chance. It's why I decided to give you like a fourth chance or a fifth chance. Because up until that, your second chance was our children. Your third chance was our children. Your fourth chance was our children. That's what was keeping me with us and trying to be with you. But
4回目ぐらいだそうです。ずっと子供ができるたびにやり直そうと思ってくれて。
I was trying to weigh what would be worse for the kids. Us staying together in a bad marriage, fighting all the time in front of them, but being together, or us separating and sharing the kids, but maybe having two happy parents. And that's what happened at 2018. I finally just said, I can't do this anymore. I need to leave.
17 around the Christmas, yeah.
Yeah. I said I'm going to go, and I took the kids for 2 months, actually, right? Yeah. And we went to America for a couple months. So that was me saying, I don't know if I'm going to be back. So that's kind of like.
But you say you'll say you will try to get back again before you leave, actually.
I said, yeah, well, I said I'd bring the kids back, but I didn't know if I was going to stay.
なんかストーリーが変わってきたぞ。まあいいや。まあよくないけど、主人の側の話も聞きたいけど。あれ
Yeah.
Yeah, but you said before you leave, you give me back the link. At the time, you said, like, let's try one more time. Then you will leave. Then you leave to America.
Did I say that?
Yeah.
Okay, well, it's not how I remember it.
ちょっと待って。すごい皆さんびっくり。
Well, back to the two things, I guess. I think the reason I gave you the fifth chance is you finally started to let me be me. That was a big thing. Like I couldn't do anything without being judged, and I felt like you were making me feel bad for everything I did, no matter what it was. If I did something, I was feeling bad for it. If I didn't do something, I was feeling bad for it. So you finally just gave me some space sometimes and let me be me, and that was a huge thing, because before, if I didn't want to be around you, well, yeah, this was true sometimes, but it was always like you'd equate that to I didn't love you. Like if I don't want to be near you, I don't love you. I don't like you, kind of thing, right? Because anytime I wanted to be alone, I like to be alone. Like I grew up an only child. That's just my personality. But I always felt like you would make me feel bad for that. Like if I didn't want to spend time with you, that means I didn't love you. And I guess the second thing that I remember the most is you said okay, which is kind of like what we just talked about. Yeah, because I said I'm going to go
to America.
Yeah, and I said I'm going to take the kids, which I know must have been hard for you. I gave you the ring, said I can't wear this anymore, but you said you didn't like it. You were sad about it, but you said okay. Like you finally stopped fighting me. It was like think of it like a tide. The tide comes in and out, right? And sometimes you just got to let the tide do the tide thing, but you were always trying to fight the tide, and you finally just said okay, and you let me go.
Why are you crying?
Because it's sad. But that was a big thing, because up until that point, you were always fighting with me over everything. And I think you realized that you had to let me do this if you were going to save us. You had to stop fighting the tide.
Oh.
And the tide left, and guess what? The tide came back.
Eh?
What? I came back. Like you said okay. Like you finally said okay. So I mean, I took the kids to see my parents, and we spent some time there, and we talked. We'd messaged, or texted, or emailed, or whatever. We did a couple video chats, and then. Like I felt that I thought you could change the way you were thinking, because I finally felt like you understood what you were doing. We're still working on it. But you can't fix a problem if you can't see a problem. And
right.
And you finally kind of saw it. You were able to what I would say third person. So instead of just looking through your own tunnel, You're able to kind of separate yourself and see yourself looking through your own time.
Right.
You may not be able to stop it all the time, but at least you could see it. Does that make sense? So that means we could finally talk about it. So I don't know. There's like a saying in English too, and this, my voice acting coach used to say this when I was in Seattle. But
そういえば素敵な声ですねって。
Oh, thank you.
ほら。Your voice is super nice.
Sometimes.
ありがとうみちゃん。
You have to. I don't know if this is going to make sense. You have to understand before you can be understood. So if you don't understand what it is you're going through, you can't help other people understand what it is you're going through. And you kind of finally took that step, I guess, is kind of what we talked about. So this is just what happened with us, right? Like, I don't feel like this is advice for anybody. This is just like, this is a situation, and it's a very specific situation. So this is kind of how we ended up where we are today, right?
So I am getting changed. That's why you gave me chance, you thought? You thought you can...
Yeah, because before I didn't see that you would change. It was just like... And like I said, I wasn't a perfect person by any means, but like you were just out of control. Like I didn't know what to do. But you finally started to understand what it was you were doing to me. And then I felt like you could change. And that's... Like I said, you finally just let me go. You finally just kind of let me breathe. You gave me space. I mean, when I left, I said, look, here's all the money. Like I don't want anything to get in the way of this. So I left whatever savings we had. You just take all this. I'm going to go to the States with just the money in my pocket and the kids. And I don't want any kind of argument, because I know a lot of relationships end up arguing. A lot of stress in relationships is about money. Yeah, and I didn't want that to be in the way of what we were trying to do. I didn't want that to get in the way of our decision. I didn't want it to be about that. So I just said, look, I got to do this. And you just said, okay. And that was kind of the big thing. So I guess that brings us to now. Like we're still working on it. I mean, it's never going to not be effort and energy, but I think we just understand each other a little better now, or maybe a lot better. Hopefully. I'm still waiting to go ring shopping again.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, at some point.
指輪買ってくれるんだって。
Well, I mean, we can talk about that. That very much represented how I felt about our relationship before.
Yeah.
And that's why I said I'm not going to wear it again, even though we're back together and doing well. It just... So we got that. You picked it out. I wanted something else. And then it was just like, no, we're going to get this one because they match kind of thing. And I was like, okay, fine. I mean, so that represented the control and me not getting to be me. So that's why I'm still waiting to get something else. Just waiting for a good time, I guess. I mean, we've been busy and stuff. I mean, it very much represents what our marriage was and not what it is. And I want to get something that represents what it is. And we don't have to rush.
そうね。急がなくてもいつでも買えますからね。はい。何か言い残したことはありますか? Do you have anything?
I don't know. I mean, like, this is your live. I'm just a guest. Do you have anything? Does anybody else have anything? I'm just here to smile.
はい。今日はどうもありがとうございました。
Thank you very much.
ありがとう。はい。じゃあどうも皆さんありがとうございました。またね
ー。いかがでしたでしょうか？当時の旦那様は私は本当に何も分かっていませんでしたが、何度もやり直そうとして私に歩み寄ってきてくれていたんですよね。そして夫婦仲を修復する上でとっても大事なこと、それは旦那様を否定せずに受け入れる。このことを私自身が OK といったことでそれを感じたというふうに旦那様は話してくれていました。これは本当に大きかったようで、その後のね、旦那様が登場してくれるライブ配信では毎回実は OK と言っていいよとか OK って言ってみなよっていうことを本当に何度も話してくれています。それぐらいやっぱり旦那様のね、ことを否定しない、そして受け入れていくことっていうのは大事なことなんですよね。そして 私自身はいかにクレイジーなワイフだったかっていうことを旦那様がねたくさん語ってくれておりましたけれどもね、でも本当にねもうねおっしゃる通りなんです。おっしゃる通り本当にクレイジーなワイフだったわけです。そしてもう一つ動画の中で旦那様はなんでマチエはあんなに毎日怒っていたのっていうことを聞いてくれていたんですけども、それについてちょっとここで回答したいと思います。夫婦仲が悪化するっていうことがあるまでは私自身何かうまくいかないことがあると夫や周りのせい、子供のせいっていうふうに全て周りのせいにして生きてきていました。そして素直に頼ったり甘えたりしてお願いこれやってほしいということを言えばよかったんですが、察してくれることイコール愛というふうになっていたので、それさえも素直に口に出せませんでした。さらに私の機嫌というのは夫が取るものっていうふうに思っていましたので、私が不機嫌になると旦那様が機嫌を取ってくれるのは当たり前みたいな感じで思っていたわけです。とにかく私はとってもお子ちゃまだったわけです。しかもジャイアン気質で言葉がきつく上から物を言うようなことだったので、それはもうね旦那様はね本当に苦しかったと思います。そんな私がどうやって変わっていったのか、それは自分の怒りの根底にある悲しみや辛さ、それにまず気づくことから始めました。怒りっていうのは二次感情で、本当は一次感情というその下にある感情があるんです。その感情にまず気づくことっていうのを始めました。そしてその気持ちに気づくと、その気持ちを悲しかったね、苦しかったねっていうふうに寄り添ってハグハグしてそれを癒していくっていう作業を続けていきました。そうやって悲しみに気づくことで自分の気持ちが癒されて、だんだんと怒りが減っていきました。そんな作業の繰り返しでした。よく考えてみてください。これってもはやもう旦那様関係ないですよね。だから旦那様との修復に対して旦那様に対して何かをしたっていうことはもちろんゼロではありませんけれども、その前に自分自身にフォーカスをして自分のことを見つめていく作業っていうのを私は本当にたくさんしていったと思っています。そしてこういう方は私だけではなく、私の周りにいるクライアントさんでもたくさん見てきました。とにかく自分を置き去りにして旦那様の関係を良くしようというやり方の方にフォーカスしていては本当に何も変わらないし、とっても苦しいことになっていってしまいます。とにかくまずは自分です。自分にたくさんフォーカスして可愛げマインドを持ち、たくさんね自分を癒していく、そんな女性になれるようにキューティースクールでお手伝いができればとっても嬉しいです。その今募集中のキューティースクールに関しては概要欄に詳細を貼っておりますので、ぜひご覧いただければ嬉しいです。そしてね、無料メルマガの方も、ありますので、そちらの無料メルマガもぜひ登録して読んでみてください。この動画が参考になったよという方は、いいねボタンとチャンネル登録もぜひぜひよろしくお願いします。またコメントもくださればとっても励みになって嬉しいです。ではまた次の動画でお会いしましょう。